I started very young. I was 16 years old. I was encouraged by my mother to go visit a Hollywood agent, and so they sent me to a model agency, which was one of the best ones in LA. They started to get me photo shoots, and so it progressed from there. Yeah, so in the beginning, as a model, I was just doing some jobs while I was at university, and then I got scouted and did a contract. I went to Japan. I was there for 6 months, and after that, I headed to Europe. And at the time, in the 90s, which was really the golden era of supermodels and top models, and there was a lot of money flowing around, shall we say. I went to Milan, and then went to Paris. I did the shows, did all the collections at first, and then was sent to London, and I was lucky enough to get pretty much the best agencies in every city. And then it took about 2 years of living out of the suitcase and doing this sort of thing when finally, shall we say, Karl Lagerfeld or one of his people saw a photograph of me that I guess really interested him, and they invited me in to see him at the office in Paris. And they then said, "Oh, you've got the next Chanel campaign." So that was a big moment for me in the business. I was, of course, very excited. And then all of a sudden, Claudia Schiffer was on the shoot with me. Another guy who was a top model at the time. I was brand new. I think I was only 19 at the time. And yeah, so that was an exciting moment. And then from there, things started rolling. I got Hugo Boss campaign as well. I did that 2 or 3 seasons in a row. And I kept following the show circuits and stuff. And then also back in the day, Germany was a big market for catalog. And this is the way, especially the guys, made their money. And so I was doing a lot of catalog work. And now that's changed. We don't have mail-in catalogs quite as much anymore. Of course, everything is on the internet, and so the business has changed a lot. And so anyway, so I followed this chemin, this path, and eventually I started getting a little stagnant with the modeling. It wasn't quite as exciting as it was, and I decided to take an acting course. So then that's when I was living in London, and I started training at the Method Studio there, method acting, and I had the privilege of working on some Shakespeare and really doing some theater, Harold Pinter, some great playwrights. So I really sort of tried to do it right, work on my acting skills before I decided to finally just move away from Europe and return back to LA, and got well into Hollywood. So I started proposing myself as an actor, started doing auditions and stuff. So I have quite a lot of experience as far as all that goes. And I actually pursued that for about 10 years. I did some TV shows. Some are known over here, a few soap operas. I did CSI Miami, which is Les Experts, I think, here. And yeah, so that's how that got going. And I would say at a certain point, it's a very tough business, and it didn't really progress the way I wanted it to. At that time, I was working on the side. I was starting to do portraits and headshots for actors in LA. So I started getting my feet wet with photography then. Really, really enjoyed it. Started getting very interested in it. And then I was sort of afforded the opportunity to come back to Europe. And just for personal reasons, I thought it would be a great new place to come back to. I had learned French in Paris when I was living there for 4 years. So for me to come to the French part of Switzerland was really, which was fun, and I got to get back into my French and stuff. And so that's when I met Maria, and that was about 7 years ago. I started working for Kaizen. Right away, she explained to me the name and the philosophy of Kaizen, which is constant improvement. It's a Japanese philosophy. And she invited me to start helping advise some of the models. And that's when she'd already started doing some modeling courses at the time. And I thought I brought in the idea to really start doing some acting courses as well. The acting courses are really indispensable because there's so much more video now. With the advent of the internet, of course, and all the self-promotion people can do, it's actually rare that you're on a photo shoot that there isn't video being shot as well. So now we have 2 things to work on. And so that's sort of what I tried to bring, and what I tried to offer to Kaizen was just the fact that I had my history as a model. and then my history as an actor. And so I got to see things from all points of view, as well as photography and learning how to do the lighting in the studio and stuff. This all informed me and allowed me to have a lot more advice and to really advise models on how to sort of improve their game, which is that Kaizen philosophy. So yeah, so we have a lot of fun in here. We're working with kids, we work with adults in our workshops, and I find what's really interesting is that we can work with a model who has already some experience, and I can improve, or we can improve together what they're doing and what they have to offer in front of the camera. I explained a little bit more about how the photography is from the photographer's point of view, how you can work with the lights. The more knowledge the models have with how to work with the lights really helps improve things for them, and they can do a much better job. Acting is a whole, like, shall we say, a discipline and an art that you have to learn over quite some time. So here we introduce people just to the basic techniques of acting. Where you want to put your eyes, what is the point of view, should you think up or should you think down? These are all little like tricks of the trade that we teach the young people and the older people that come in as well. So there is just a load of information to learn as far as maybe figuring out what is your niche in the business. Are you a model who's going to be purely fashion? Should you head to Paris? Should you head to Milan? Should you be doing what we call high fashion in the US, but just pure fashion? Is your look a little bit more commercial? Should you be looking just to be maybe an influencer? This is how the business has changed a lot. So there's a lot of different opportunities now. There's a lot of overlap in all the categories as well, but just to be aware of where you fit in, how you can promote yourself, little details about yourself. If you're super skinny and you have that high fashion look, which is not necessarily classically beautiful anymore, because the style has really changed in the last few years. They're really looking for interesting people. They're looking for character types. Very, very important that you know where you fit in. Do you have tattoos all over your body? Are you, entre guillemets, in quotes, are you an uglier type? Are you a character type? Are you a funny type? So this is important to know where you fit in, where you can work. There's all sorts of agencies that Kaizen has alliances with. We have a whole system of placement where we send models into foreign markets. And then we're also very approachable just by people who want to stay in Switzerland. They're not full-time models. Maybe they're doing it on the side. And so they're not 100%. They're not full-time models, but they still want to be good at what they do. And that also helps the agencies when our models show up on the set, when they show up on a job. They're proficient. They understand what their role is, what they have to do. There's just so many, I'm passionate about it. There's so many different realms and little things to know which empower the model.